Hi, this is Evan with VoIP Innovations and Apidaze. VoIP Innovations is a leading provider of phone numbers in North America and Europe. Apidaze is our programmable voice and messaging platform, which allows your web applications to easily interact with calls and texts. Basically, how it works is calls or texts, be they inbound or outbound, fires off a webhook URL to your application. Your application then responds with an XML document with instructions on how to handle a call or text. We also provide a REST API that allows you to send SMS, initiate calls, change your webhook URL, and various other administration tasks. Some examples of some of the things you can do with Apidaze are listed here, which may help you, decide what your hack is going to be for TAD hack. IVRs are super easy to build. You can easily record calls, play back media files. We do text-to-speech, so if you type out your text, it'll play it back as audio. And we also offer a speech-to-text transcription API capability to conferences and calls by simply adding a parameter to your XML tag. If you visit the TAD hack website and go to the global option here, you can scroll down to development resources and find a link for VoIP Innovations where you can find some of the resources we provide to make it easy for you to be successful at TAD hack. Our API documentation is the scripting documentation link here. Here you can sign up for a developer account, which I highly recommend you do as soon as possible. And we have a getting started guide document as well that'll walk you through how to buy a phone number and set up your web app and your webhook URL. Support link. We will have support staff available to help you out during the hackathon and provide you any support that you need regarding web applications, ordering numbers, anything you might need to help you move forward. On our GitHub, we provide a WebRTC JavaScript API, which is easily importable into your web application so that we provide all the capabilities right there. So there are simple functions that you call from your web document. One cool thing we offer is a Firebase example where you can set up a Firebase application on Google and clone our GitHub repo and publish it to Firebase with your API key and phone number that you have active on your account. And you have a full working demo of the capabilities of the platform. And I'll walk you through that in just a second. So on our GitHub, Firebase example is located here. The Apidaze JavaScript is located here. If you go into the Apidaze JS, scroll down, you can read all the instructions on how to get started. One cool thing is you can install it as an NPM module if you're running Node.js for your application, as well as you can easily import it here from this link by dropping that into your HTML. There are samples located in the sample directory here for various capabilities of the API. And down here in the README, you can see how to run those examples locally. It's pretty easy and straightforward. Let me back up here and go into the Firebase example. This provides all the instructions you need to go into Firebase, set up an application or project, and deploy this repository to that project in Firebase. And what that looks like is this. If you go in and add a project, I've already added Apidaze example here. If you go inside there and go to database, per the instructions that you'll read in the README, this is what it's going to look like in the database to add the API key and the phone number you have active on your account. And from that point, when you load your application, it should have that information displayed here on the page, as well as the phone number here that's going to ring the browser when an inbound call comes in. So this is working WebRTC right out of the box, deployed to Firebase in less than 5 minutes. A call comes in, you'll have a little answer button that you can click here and talk right through the browser. Initiating an outbound call is down here in this box. So I can type in a phone number, country code and phone number. So it's E164 without the plus, and initiate that call. And while you're in process, you can also hang up the call. And the conferencing capabilities are down here. So I can create a WebRTC-based conference by clicking join. That will initiate the conference, and I can also start video so that there is now video in the call. I can invite an external phone number by typing in the phone number here and inviting it. More people who join the conference call can also start video, so you'll see a working example of a video conference. Jump back over here to the resources. I'm going to walk you through now, not the sign up for the developer account. I'll let you do that. But once you're signed up, you will hit the VoIP Innovations back office portal, and there's a link for that right there, backoffice.voipinnovations.com. You'll log in with the credentials that are provided to you when you sign up. The important things here are the app section and the DID section. DIDs are phone numbers, if you're unfamiliar with that term. So the first thing you probably want to do is order a phone number. So I go into DIDs here. And I want to go to purchase DIDs. The easiest way to get started is click local DIDs. I can choose a state or a zip code. I'm just going to type in Texas and my zip code. And it should auto-populate the area code here. I'm going to choose 737 as an area code. I just want one number for the hackathon here. I'm going to click view DID results. So this is the list of phone numbers that are available for me to select and use with my application. I'm just going to choose the first one here, say buy DIDs now, and I do want to buy it. Okay, it's been purchased. So now what I can do is I can hop over to here to apps. I'm going to create a new app for TADHack, so create new script. So in the portal here, we call them external scripts. That's synonymous with webhook URL. So this is where your application is going to live at that URL. What we do offer, however, is the ability to create a static XML script right here in this interface. So by default, the Create Script button is selected, and here's just a sample XML in here. So I could actually leave that for the sake of the demo purposes, and when a call comes into the phone number that I'm going to assign to this, it'll play back that speak tag here per the instructions of the XML document, and it will do text-to-speech, so I will hear this read to me. If I specify an external script URL, this is where I put in the webhook URL of my application. So if it's that Firebase application, I will put that in here, but your web app go. So that's your webhook URL. And when a call or text comes in, this is the information that's going to get posted, or I'm sorry, it'll be a GET request with these variables as URL parameters. And your web application, you'll want to parse out those URL params and do whatever you like with them in your application and respond back with the XML doc. So I'm going to name this TADHack demo and create the script. So once this is done, you will see it in the list here in the application window. Now that you can come back into the portal and change your webhook URL, or you can actually do that via a REST API, which I will show you in just a second. But once this script is created, why it's taking so long is actually validating the script because we don't want any invalid scripts or invalid external URLs for your webhook URLs configured that's going to provide bad information back to the system. So we're always going to validate the scripts. So that is one thing to note. If you do specify a webhook URL to your application in this interface, we are going to validate it that it's going to return a valid XML document. So if your web application is not up yet, just leave this as the static default script, and then you can update your webhook URL later through the API whenever you're ready to send calls to your application. So now I've got TADHack demo created right here. You can see it in the middle listed. I have 0 phone numbers associated with it. We're going to do that in just a second with that number we just bought. But one thing to note is you will see your API key right here, as well as the secret. So that information, if I click on that, it'll display this, and I can copy and paste it so that I can use in my application. All right, so now let's configure that DID, that phone number that we just bought. So I'm going to click on the DID programming wizard. And I'm going to have the unprogrammed DIDs here. So these are all the account or the phone numbers on my account that are not configured yet. So we bought that 737 number for Austin, Texas. It says unconfigured. I'm going to choose that, and I'm going to program it for the selected application that we just created, TADHack demo. Click program, and now that number is live and ready to go. So you'll receive voice and SMS to your webhook URL that you configured, or if you left that static script configured, if you call that number that you just bought, it'll play back that script. Okay, so now that's done, let's talk about our REST API. So in the TADHack resources list here, you'll see the scripting documentation link. That will take you to our API documentation. One thing about our API documentation is if you use Postman to test APIs with, we have that capability right here. So if I click Run in Postman, I can load the collection straight to my Postman application that's running on Mac. One thing to note about that is you will need to configure your API key and secret in the environment. So in Postman, you will have an environment set up. You can set up an environment which you can choose. So Apidaze template has just default API key and secret as these variables, but you go into your Postman, choose to edit the Apidaze template environment, and you can add your API key and secret as the variables in that setting. And then you can run all of the capabilities for the REST API right from Postman to test with. So external script management, this is where you're actually going to update your webhook URL if you want. So I can actually get a list of my, external script URL. And when I do a put, this is how I would update it. So I can just add a new URL as one of the parameters in the body. And this is really easy to do via Postman if you want to just do it via that. Or here's a curl example over here on the right. Call management API, this is how you're going to actually send an outbound SMS or place a call. So you can initiate a call from here or send a text. If I have live calls up, I can get a list of active calls as well. So it's going to return back the calls with the IDs and so forth. So if I want to do a transfer, or if I want to capture that call, I can by using the ID provided in that active calls list. The Miscellaneous API, this is where you're going to interact with your media files. So if I want to upload a media file that's pre-recorded, for the sake of TADHack, you're probably not going to do that simply because the text-to-speech is a lot easier just to type out in the speak tag what you want played back if you're going to do an IVR or any kind of hold message. And also the recordings endpoint, this is where I'm going to interact with call recordings if I use the record tag in any of my scripts that we create in our application. So I'll get a full list of the recordings. I can download the recordings and I can manipulate them by the REST API here. For XML scripting in your documentation, here's the XML scripting reference. Obviously, you will not interact with this via the REST API. This is the XML document that your application is going to generate to instruct Apidaze on what to do with that call or text. So a dial tag is going to dial another number. So if I have a call come in and I say dial, I put in my cell phone number, it's actually going to move the call to my cell phone. So an inbound call to the number we just bought, and I put my cell phone number in the dial tag, it's going to call that. So there's descriptions for each one of these tags, as well as the attributes that you can configure within that tag. So if you take a moment to read through these, you can get a good understanding of how they all work. And example request, this is important for you to consume the call data that comes in on an inbound call or text to your webhook URL that you configure. So we define the parameters here for a call. And we also, if you scroll down, you can see the examples for a SMS coming into your application. So the SMS and calls are different. The calls are going to be a GET request with URL params, and an inbound SMS is actually going to be a post with JSON data. So here's an example of the JSON data that you will get or you will receive in your application. If you scroll down here to the WebRTC API reference, this is going to talk a bit about the JavaScript that we just looked at in our GitHub account. So this will go into more detail how to use that within your application. I do highly recommend you use the Apidaze JS GitHub repository for the JavaScript into your web application, or use the Firebase example. You can look at the Firebase example and get a good idea of how the whole system works, and you can actually hack that up, if you will, if you need to create a really fast web application and make it do the things you need to do. So let's go look at that real quick in Firebase. The Firebase example, if you actually look at the firebase.json, oh, sorry, let me back up here. In the Firebase example, if you actually go into the functions and you look at the index.js, you'll actually see the endpoints that Firebase is going to use to listen for those calls to come in. So incoming calls for this example are going to respond with this XML document. You scroll down, you'll see on answer what happens whenever we answer a call, what happens when a call hangs up. It's going to respond with that XML document, and so forth. So you can actually scroll through this index.js file and get a good feel of how to interact with the Apidaze API. And that's it for our intro. And we look forward to seeing what everybody hacks up using our API, and wish you all a very successful TAD hack. Again, from the resources page on the TAD Hack Global website, you can get our contact information for support. If you need to reach us for anything, we will have people available to help you out. Happy hacking.